Hi and welcome to the second part of this tutorial for intermediates in Autocad, the tutorial to not stay a beginner forever. The list of contents is available in the description of the video if you want to have a look at it. For now, we can start the tutorial. Layout tabs, extra tips. When we set a viewport to show a specific drawing with a specific scale, we realize that in a small distraction we scroll the mouse wheel and it messes up all the scale. And then I have to go to the scale list and click again, in this case in 1/150. However, there is a very useful tool here. I can lock the viewport by clicking on this icon. Now, even I am in the model space, I can zoom or move in the same way as I was in the paper mode. By the way, I can still draw or erase objects inside the viewport. So I just recommend you to lock all the viewports when you don't want to change them anymore. Write text and draw the title block on the paper. When you need to add text to your papers, just draw it directly in the paper mode. I mean outside of any viewport. It's easier and more practical. First, it's text that we don't want to model, as it's only used for annotation. Second, the size that we specify is the paper height. In this case 5 mm, and I don't have to scale it like in a model space. Much easier. The same applies for the title block. Just draw it on the paper. You can start drawing the borders, then the text using the paper height. In this case, after placing the first single line text, I want 4 of these with the same spacing. I can use here the command copy, then the option array. I type 4, and finally you can click again to confirm the position or insert a specific distance between objects. And then just change the names to the right ones. Okay, I can take the opportunity to explain to insert an image to the layout. For example, if you want to add a logo of your company there, it's quite simple. Go to the Insert tab, then click on Attach and select an image to import to this file. I select the CAD in Black logo, for example, just to show you how it works. We can insert the coordinates of the insertion point or specify it on screen, and that's what I'm going to do. Click on OK, place the start point. I can click around here. Then it looks like that the image is a bit large, but that's fine. Just press Enter for now, as we can scale it after with a reference. Use the command Scale. Select the image. Click for the base point. Choose the option Reference at the command bar, and then choose 2 points of a reference line to resize it. And this time I will not insert any length, because I don't know it. I just move the cursor in this direction and you can see a dynamic preview of the logo. As soon as it looks great, I can click to place it there. So simple, isn't it? Yes, let's continue. Now we are going to learn to add more viewports on the same paper. Usually the purpose of doing this is to show different drawings or a specific detail that we want to show on a smaller scale. Let's go to the Layout tab on the ribbon. Here we will create a new viewport by clicking in this icon. And there are 3 ways: rectangular, polygonal and object. Let's go for rectangular. So I simply draw a rectangle here. Then I double click inside it to switch to the model space. This time we will use a custom view that we created in the previous chapter. I click on top, go to Custom Model View and choose Detail 1. And look how useful this can be, not need to search for that part, so easy. Next, I go to the scale list and I need to choose one. 1/50. And the reason that I decided to use this scale is because 1/50 is the same as 0.02, which is relatively close to the value that I've got here. And you can see that the drawing didn't change that much. Double click to switch to the paper space and readjust the viewport by clicking on the grips there. And don't forget to lock the viewport to not move it again. After, I can copy this text and place it below our new viewport. Select the text. I'm going to use this endpoint as my base point, and then click in this corner for the second point to keep the same spacing towards the viewport. And rename it with the correct text. Put also the scale of 1/50. Then let's draw a circle here. The radius doesn't need to be precise. On the Layout tab, choose now the option to create a viewport from an existing object, this one. Then click on the circle to convert it to a viewport. And of course, this option only works for enclosed areas. Then suppose what I want here is to zoom this specific part. Move the circle to a specific layer if you want, or put the object just in a specific color. And then I can draw a small circle in the same place of the floor plan to indicate that this area belongs there. And if you want at the end, you can connect it with lines. Other drafting techniques. In this chapter, I'm going to talk about drawing tips, and I will start with the grid and snap modes. Grid and snap mode can be useful when we have to make detailed drawings, especially when they have regular shapes. Let's have a look at them. The first icon at the status bar enables the grid, as you can see here. Try it on your computer. However, you will probably notice that it looks darker than here if you have the default colors. For me, they are a bit hard to see, and that's why I prefer to change them. But okay, this I will explain to you at the end of this chapter. For now, let's zoom a bit and activate the drawing command, for example, line. You can see that the cursor doesn't snap to any point, because the snap mode is off. Let's turn it on, and now yes, you can click on an intersection of the grid line. So it's easily understandable that these tools work together, and there is no point to turn on the snap mode if your grid mode is off. Now, I'm going to click on an intersection of two major lines, and by moving the cursor, you can understand what is the length between 2 points of the grid. It's 10, and the distance of two major lines is 50, because it's equal to 5 minor lines. So, as you can see, this is quite simple. Now have a look to this drawing. We can easily guess the distance between some points, if they are not that far away. For example, this distance is 100 millimeters, and the width of the rectangle is 200. Because there are 4 big squares, 5, 10, 15, 20, you can just count them. So to draw that rectangle with the grid is actually easy. This is the first corner, then the opposite will be 4 large squares to the left and 1 above the line at the bottom, so click there. You can zoom a bit to make sure that you click on the correct point, it's better. Okay, now let's learn to edit the snap and grid spacing. Click on Snap Settings to modify those values. It's in the first tab of the Drawing Settings window, here. Of course, to snap only in every point of the grid, the snap spacing and grid spacing must match. Don't forget this. And the values that I have now are the settings that I used in the previous example. Suppose we set 5 for snap spacing, but leave 10 mm for the grid spacing. The result is this. And it can actually be a good method, because with the same grid, I can have the center of each square as an extra point to snap, as you can see. To have a different x and y spacing, I need to uncheck equal x and y spacing, and then I set the values. Here I have 5 mm for y distance and 10 for the x distance. I can also change the length of the major lines. The higher the value, the easier to measure larger distances. If I'm zooming out the workspace, at one point the grid resizes, in a way that the lines won't get that close. We couldn't see anything if that would happen. This means that at this moment the spacing here is not what we put on the settings. Be careful, don't draw anything now. Always draw in the maximum zoom. And in the case that you want to draw bigger objects, simple, just change the spacing settings to bigger values. If I like to have the workspace more organized and I want a point to be in the corner of an intersection when I zoom out a lot, like where I am now, simple, place the cursor there, in the corner, and zoom in slowly, keeping the cursor in the same position. When the grid doesn't resize anymore, it means that the grid is now resized correctly. Change the grid colors. As I told you previously, the default grid colors are dark. But I understand their point. We don't want the workspace to look a mess with the grid on, especially when we have lots of layers with different colors, like in the example here. But I think that putting the grid a bit lighter, it doesn't interfere that much. So let's learn to do it. To edit the colors, we have to access the Options menu. Then I go to the Display tab and click on this button that says Colors. Here we can change the color of each element on the workspace. You can see a big list here. Also, they are grouped by context. It's the list on the left. Now it says that we are at a 2D model space. So I am happy with most of the Autocad interface colors. So I don't need to change them, except the grid, which is a bit dark for me. To change a color, click on the element, go to Color, choose one from the list or click here to pick a different one. Let's say I want it a bit green, but in a grey style. I keep the cursor here, and then I drag this rectangle, to choose the proper color, a bit up, to be more visible, and click on OK. It's done. Now I need to change the grid minor lines. To do it, I choose the same color. Then I click again and pick up a color so the cursor will be in the same position. This is good if you just want to change the color a bit and to not look very different. So I want to put the selector a bit darker, then click on OK. I apply and close the window, and now it looks more visible. So you can just choose a color that will be comfortable for you. Change the position of the UCS. Look to this situation. Here I want to draw these objects in reference to the diagonal wall. It would be hard to draw them accurately if I use the UCS coordinates on the position by default. You can see that while I'm trying to draw that line, I don't have any reference to draw it perpendicular to the wall. But no problem, because I can make the things easier by just rotating the UCS coordinates. I go to the icon, click on it, I place it in this corner, and then, clicking on the x-axis, I align it to this diagonal line. Then I can switch to ortho mode, and you can see that I can easily draw vertical and horizontal lines according to the new UCS position. Also, if I want to insert a block now, it automatically rotates. And the same happens with the grid. Then, to restore the original UCS, which is the WCS, World Coordinate System, just click on the icon and then select World. Now let's have a look at the shortcut menu, the one that we can open with the right button of the mouse. Actually, most of these functions are icons located on panels in the ribbon, but sometimes it can be easier for us doing this way. Now I will make a quick introduction of what you can find here. The first option over there repeats the last command used. It's an alternative way of just pressing enter when we don't have any command active. I actually prefer to just press enter, it's much easier. Then there is a list of the last commands used. On the clipboard we find the basic tools to copy, move or cut objects to a different file. And this still works by just pressing the classic shortcuts, like the Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V and so on. For example, I will copy these objects, press enter, then I go to a different file, and just click on paste. And they will be copied exactly in the same position as they were before. But if you wanted to copy this door straight, you can use the method that I just showed you previously, by moving the UCS coordinates to the corner, then rotate the x-axis in line of the edge of the door, and repeat the process. Press Ctrl-C, and then paste it in the other drawing. And now it's straight. Back in the shortcut menu, I want to show you some options that I use quite often, like isolate objects. I'm going to select this part, and then I click on Isolate Objects, and you notice that all the other drawings disappeared. To revert these changes, just click on End Object Isolation. In the same submenu, there is also Hide Objects, which will be the opposite. If there are parts that you are not using at the moment, you can hide them temporarily. A bit down in the list, there are the options to use the pen, zoom, or the steering wheels. Then there is the Quick Select, Quick Calculator, also available on the ribbon, and the Options menu. Also, don't forget that when you select objects, that menu is different, and depends the kind of object that you select. For example, in a block, you get options to edit a block, reset a block if you modify it, or edit a block in place if you don't want to open the block editor. Then you find the basic commands to modify objects, so it's also possible to access them from this list. Then there is the draw order, and this one I use a lot. When you create a new layer, Autocad puts the objects of that layer above everything that was created before. For example, here I created the layer for the dimension lines after the layer for the walls. And because I don't like these extension lines above the walls, let's sweep the order. And for that I need to select all the objects of the layer dimensions. And I can do it from the Quick Select, choose the layer DLI and click OK. Now that all the dimensions are selected, I can go again to the right click menu, go to Draw Order and choose Send to Back. And look that the walls are now visible when they overlap dimensions. Another tool I sometimes use is Group Objects. Let's say I want to group this floor plan, but without the dimensions. Turn off the layer DLI. Then I select everything and from the menu choose Group. And I could move or copy this house elevation to a different place. The option Select Similar is also very useful. By clicking on a type of object, for example a dimension line, you can see that it selects all the remaining dimensions, but yes, they must be located in the same layer. For example, in this situation, the large dimension is not selected. Object Snap Overrides has a useful tool that not a lot of people know. Suppose we are drawing a line here, and we want to connect it perpendicular with the diagonal line below. As you see, it's only showing up the midpoint and the end point. But if I click with the right button, I can see Object Snap Overrides, I go there, and I can choose a different mode. In this case, I click on perpendicular, and now you can see the symbol appearing. Just click on it to make those lines orthogonal to each other. You can try the other modes by yourself, for example, nearest, or on the top you can create a temporary track point or choose the middle between 2 points. This is how it works. I choose 2 points and it selects the middle distance between them. So just explore the other modes, maybe you find some useful for you, as long as the other options from the shortcut menu. Okay, it's everything in this part of this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching and subscribe to the channel if you want. It's not mandatory, of course. So, see you on the next part if it's already available. Otherwise, there is more content in this channel or in other channels if you want to change, it's not a problem. So, see you soon.